What's going on, guys? Bruce Mattson here, your host show of Metric Scout Fantasy Football. And week 3 is almost done. We still have the Monday night game, but I'm going to give you some guys to buy at the running back position. You can kind of call them buy lows, but some of them are still a little expensive. But this list here should help you more in basic redraft, maybe home leagues. And if you're new here, what I do is I scrub spreadsheets. I try to find guys who are getting a lot of workload, but not producing up to that level of workload, and we see if we can buy low. These are more like suggestions. These are takes from the spreadsheet, and then I give you my opinion on the players. If this is something you're into, make sure you smash that subscribe button, because I do this often throughout the week. I'll give you another top 5 running backs probably tomorrow or the next day. I also did another top 5 wide receivers earlier today, and that's in the archives. I suggest you check that out. But for today's top 5 running backs, we're looking at running backs who had a 40% opportunity share or higher. And opportunity share is percentage of the team's running back carries plus targets. So if you're wondering what that means, that's what that means. And then on top of that, we sorted it to running backs who had 5 targets or more. So this is more passing game influence, because the passing game really boosts the fantasy production. With that being said, let's dig into these running backs. I got 5 running backs for you right now. The first one we're going to talk about here is Alvin Kamara. And when you look up opportunity share and you look at a high percentage, like 40% or higher, you're going to get a lot of stud running backs. Not all the running backs will be stud, but you're going to get a lot of studs, because studs get a lot of workload. So I picked out one of the studs here that didn't perform well in week 3 from a fantasy perspective to talk about here, just to give you guys a top tier guy to look at to trade for, just to give you the idea. So Alvin Kamara, RB37 right now. In PPR, it's probably going to drop to 38, 39-ish, depending on what happens in this Monday night game. 7.3 PPR fantasy points, 81.5% opportunity share, which is huge. He had 7 targets in the passing game, 61 rushing yards, 2 catches for 12 yards. So the workload was there, but it just ran bad. That being said, even him coming back from a rib injury, if he's on the field, he's getting workload. That, with him scoring 7.3 points, you might be able to catch him on the cheap. Probably more in your basic leagues, maybe a work league or something like that. But I really wanted to offer him up there, considering this sheet was flushed with top tier talent. So I wanted to have one of the top tier guys in here, so you guys had a top tier guy to look at. The next running back here is Rhys Hall. Talked about him in previous weeks on previous buy low videos. RB12 on the week right now. Probably will fall to 13 or 14, depending on what happens in this game. 15.2 PPR fantasy points. It's starting to hit. He's starting to heat up. The buy low opportunity is going away. It may be already gone for a lot of you, but for some of you guys, you might be able to get in. Depends on your league and depending on who you're playing with. 57.6 opportunity share, 11 targets. One of the most targeted players this week. 39 rush yards, but 6 catches for 53 yards. And he's getting a lot of work in the passing game. He's getting a ton of work in the passing game, and that's helping his fantasy production. And it's only week 3. We should see him get more and more as he evolves. Eventually, he's going to be the top guy in his offense. Rhys Hall is going to be unobtainable. You're not going to be able to get him in trades. You might be able to try now. A lot of leagues, you're not going to be able to get him. The numbers are showing us that the opportunity share, the targets, everything's aligning for him to hit, especially once he gets more involved in the offense. This could be a good buy low, even with him going higher, because you could get like that Jonathan Taylor streak at the end of the season where he's bumping you a lot of RB1 weeks. Right now he's an RB1, should finish high-end RB2. Next guy, J.D. McKissic, RB28, 10 PPR fantasy points, 41.4 opportunity share, 9 targets, 8 rush yards, 6 catches, 32 yards. I look at this as more a product of the game script, and he's got a lot of competition there with Gibson. Brian Robinson's going to eventually be back. On top of that, Curtis Samuel getting the short targets as well. I don't see this as a long-term viable option. If I'm in a deeper league, maybe a deeper dynasty or just a deeper league in general, where it's tough in the streets and he's a cheap get and you're just looking up for patch-up work. And when I say patch-up work, you're not hoping for an RB1, maybe not even an RB2. You're just hoping to get 8 fantasy points for the week and you're really riding with your wide receivers and maybe your RB1 or whatever else you got. You may want to look at that just so you can get that cheap option. The basic redraft leagues, you're probably not going to think about him. Good week here for workload, but I don't see this workload coming every week. He may have a pop-off week here and there because of game scripts, but it's something that you're not going to trust putting into your lineup. Next guy here is Devin Singletary, RB3. So he produced this week. But he's not considered one of the studs like a Christian McCaffrey or anything. 24 PPR fantasy points. We don't get that every week from Devin Singletary. So just because he popped off in week 3 doesn't mean his value went through the roof. It doesn't always happen that way. Plus, the top tier running backs got decimated. They got decimated this week. And we had a lot of ancillary jabronis come in, the top scorers of running backs, and got the flash a little bit. Devin Singletary is one of them jabronis. RB3, very good week. Very good game script. Bills come from behind and had to use him in the passing game. He had 11 targets, 13 rush yards, 9 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. Is this every week? No. Can he get you RB1 spot production here and there? Yeah. I mean, the Bills are going to be in good game scripts off and on. They are a high-powered offense, and you want a lot of Bills. Is his price up? Maybe in some leagues, maybe in a lot of leagues. His price might be higher in basic leagues, and you know what? His price might not have moved in tougher leagues, because sometimes when the price goes up and you think it's a higher price to buy, actually that manager thinks it's just time to sell, and they actually undercut themselves a little bit. We see this when we look at the dynasty trade scenarios. We look at the trade finders from the trades on My Fantasy League, and people are actually selling people on the low when you think their values actually perceived higher. So he's an RB3 here. There might be some leagues out there in this world where you can still get him on the cheap. His value probably didn't bump up as much as what you think. The opportunity share is pretty good. I would look at him more as a volatile running back asset that you could use in plus matchups. Or if you need a cheaper running back and you can still get him cheap, then he's a good guy to flex or have as your RB2. But I don't see him being overly expensive yet or ever. And I don't see him really being a top tier back like a Jonathan Taylor or anything. But he can be a good high-end patch-up guy. Last guy here, Ramondre Stevenson. We were talking about Harris last week on one of these videos, one of these buy lows. And I always mention Harris or Stevenson when I'm talking about one of them, because these guys flip and flop on each other, and this is what happened this week. RB7 right now. RB7. 20 PPR fantasy points, but everyone knows he's sharing the backfield. 54.8 opportunity share, 7 targets, 73 rush yards, 1 touchdown, 4 catches, 28 yards. The thing about Stevenson, the thing about Harris, is I would buy the cheaper one, because you don't know what you're going to get week to week. I like them both in their own way. I like cheap, though. When I get running backs, I like to get them cheap because I don't know how long they're going to last on my roster because of the injuries. Running backs get hurt a lot. When it comes to cheaper running backs that can get me some patch-up work or help me out a little bit, then that's good to go, especially if I'm strong at other positions. If I'm weak at running back and I'm hurting at receiver, I'm pretty much screwed anyways, and I got to make some gamble trades to make things work. But if I'm good at tight end, wide receiver, quarterback, and I just need an RB2, you know what? I'm going to chase some patch-up work, and I'm going to chase the matchups. Ramondre Stevenson has RB1 upside, as he saw from this week, and we're going to get more games like this. How many? Maybe 3 or 4 more. Some RB2 games, some good patch-up production, but he will hold some value, and I don't think this RB7 week is enough for his value to increase, because everyone knows he's sharing the backfield. It's not a secret. Even in basic leagues, tough leagues, deep leagues, Debbie leagues, redraft leagues, dynasty leagues. Everyone knows this. It's not a secret. So his value is never going to go sky high unless something happens to Harris. And Harris's value is not going to sky high unless something happens to Stevenson. But I would take the cheaper one and just play the matchups, close my eyes, and hope for the best. Obviously, one will be cheaper in your league, and one will be more priced in your league. When you kick the tires in the market, one will probably be obtainable and the other one probably won't be. Odds of getting trades done in your leagues, most leagues, aren't really happening. So my goal here is to give you as many suggestions as possible. That's why I'm cranking out these videos to help you out. And remember, these are off the spreadsheet, and I'm looking for running backs, wide receivers who are getting workload, who are getting touches, targets, opportunities, and are not producing, or the values might be sketchy in leagues that you can capitalize on. Running backs and wide receivers who are getting a ton of workload, who are being very productive, are expensive. A lot of people chase last week's points. That's just how it goes. The demand's high on production. But if you can get unproductive players who are getting a lot of workload, a good share of the volume of work, but haven't hit yet on the production, then there's a good chance that that player will eventually hit, especially in optimized game scripts. You put them in your lineup. Hopefully things go well for you. But players who are touching the ball, or at least having touches or opportunities go their way, are more likely to score fantasy points that don't have the ball coming to them at all. It's just common sense, right? So we're trying to look for players like that. That's why you need to hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to be running these reports. I'm going to run more reports tomorrow. I'll have deeper reports going over some of these players. That way I can help scrape some of these cheaper options or these suggestions to help you out. But I want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.